I was 17 when I broke my leg during the regional track finals. It wasn't just a sprain or a twist. It was a full-blown fracture, a clean snap heard across the field as I fell to the ground, screaming in a mixture of pain and panic. The ambulance ride was a blur of sirens, tears, and numb confusion. I had trained for that race all year. It was supposed to be my golden ticket to a full scholarship. Scouts were there, coaches, cameras. But all they saw was a stretcher carrying me away from the finish line I never reached. When I got to the hospital, I asked for my parents over and over again. I was cold, scared, in pain, and just wanted to see a familiar face. I imagined them bursting through the ER doors in panic, hugging me, saying, "We're here, we've got you." But no one came. Instead, a nurse named Kelsey held my hand as they set my leg and inserted the metal rod. I drifted in and out of anesthesia, half dreaming that my mother was combing my hair back or that my father was pacing the hallway. But when I fully woke up, all I had was a voicemail. "Hey, honey," my mom's voice chirped. "We're not going to make it to the hospital. Your sister's college orientation was moved up and, well, she's nervous and this is a big deal. I'm sure you'll be fine. You've always been strong. Love you." That was it. No visit, no flowers, no "how bad is it?" Not even a photo of my dog to cheer me up. My sister Emily had always been the golden child. Straight A's, pageant ribbons, the girl who got a car at 16 just for making the honor roll. I didn't hate her, I admired her, but I had always felt like the second act, the afterthought. The accident confirmed it. They didn't even post about it on social media. No "pray for our daughter," no hospital wristband photo, no supportive emoji-filled caption. But Emily's orientation? There were photos of her smiling with her campus map, her new dorm, a caption that read, "So proud of our girl. Next stop, greatness." And me? I was on crutches for 4 months and invisible the entire time. They left me in the care of my elderly neighbor, Mrs. Dubois, who made me tea, helped me to the bathroom, and even paid for an in-home therapist when my insurance wouldn't cover one. I called my parents once, hoping maybe they'd finally realize how serious it was. My dad picked up and sighed. "We'll visit once we're back from campus." "You're okay, right?" The silence that followed made me question my own pain. I stopped calling after that. Instead, I journaled everything. Every ache, every therapy session, every milestone I hit without them. I wrote down what it felt like to attend doctor appointments alone, to ask a stranger to help me shower, to limp to the mailbox on my own just to feel a little more alive. But something inside me snapped to that day on the track, and it wasn't just my leg. It was the belief that love and support from my family were unconditional, because clearly they were very, very conditional. One day, I opened the acceptance letter to a local state university. They had a great kinesiology program, ironically fueled by my newfound obsession with recovery science. I wanted to understand the body, to master it, to rebuild myself. And I was determined to walk across my own stage, diploma in hand, without needing anyone to cheer me on. When I told my parents, my mom's response was, "That's sweet. Maybe you can transfer to Emily's school later." They didn't know that I had already declined that offer. I didn't want to walk in her shadow anymore. I wanted to build my own path, step by painful step. College wasn't glamorous for me. While Emily was posting selfies with sorority sisters in pastel crop tops, I was working nights at a smoothie bar, doing campus physical therapy by day, and studying late into the evening with a heating pad wrapped around my still aching leg. My dorm was shared with 3 strangers and smelled like old socks and ramen noodles. But it was mine, and I wasn't wasting another second trying to be noticed. The pain I had carried, from the fall, from the silence, from the birthday cards that never came, slowly began to shift. It didn't go away, but it changed form. It became fuel. I took that broken leg and made it my compass. I started studying human movement, specializing in injury recovery. I did a research paper on recovery negligence, and used my own experience as the silent case study. My professor cried when she read it. She nominated it for a national undergraduate award. 2 years later, I was presenting it at a conference in Chicago. The crowd applauded. I felt powerful, not because I was noticed, but because I had built something worth noticing. Meanwhile, Emily's Instagram posts began to change tone. Gone were the sunshine and sisterhood. Now it was vague captions like, "Learning who's real," and "Trust no one." Rumor had it she dropped out. Something about her not getting into the program she wanted and clashing with her roommate. At home, the dynamic started to shift too. My parents didn't reach out, not until I made the dean's list for the 4th semester in a row, and a cousin mentioned it in the family group chat. Then suddenly, my mom messaged, "Wow, why didn't you tell us, sweetie?" I stared at the screen, half laughing. Because I did tell them. They just weren't listening back then. I replied with a screenshot of their old voicemail, the one about how Emily's orientation was a big deal. No response. That summer, I interned at a major rehabilitation center. I worked with stroke patients, athletes, even a man who had lost both legs in an accident and was learning to walk with prosthetics. I found peace in the work, purpose in the pain. I was no longer just healing. I was helping others heal. That fall, Emily moved back home. My parents never explained why, but her social media went dark. All I knew was she wasn't the campus star anymore. I got a message from her once, a single sentence. "How did you manage to keep going?" I didn't reply, not yet. Instead, I kept building. I graduated with honors, applied for scholarships, and was accepted into one of the top doctoral programs for physical therapy in the state. My capstone project? A system for affordable injury recovery care for underserved communities, based on the one I had to design for myself when my parents left me alone with a fractured femur. By the time I was 24, I had launched a startup with 2 colleagues. It was a mobile clinic system, a way to bring recovery resources to rural areas. My name was printed on press releases. I was being invited to podcasts. I even got asked to do a TEDx talk, and through it all, my parents were quiet. Until the day my startup got a feature in a major wellness magazine. The headline read, "From Abandoned to Advocate, How One Young Woman Turned Pain into Purpose." They posted it on their Facebook the same day. Caption, "Proud of our daughter for always being strong." I felt nothing, no rage, no sadness, just distance, like watching strangers pose in a photo that doesn't include you. But then came the twist, the very thing I didn't expect. Emily applied for a job at my company. She didn't know it was mine. The application came through like any other. Same last name, but I assumed it was coincidence until I saw the cover letter. "I'm passionate about supporting recovery in underrepresented communities, and I'm seeking a second chance to do something meaningful." It hit me hard. Not because I wanted revenge, but because the universe had handed me a mirror. What I did next would define not just her story, but mine. I called her in for an interview. She arrived looking tired, smaller somehow. Not physically, just in presence. The light was dimmer. She didn't recognize me at first, not until I stepped into the conference room and said her name. Her face paled. "You're the CEO?" she asked, barely audible. "I'm the founder," I said. "Built it after the accident. Remember?" She opened her mouth to respond, but nothing came out. And that's when I realized I didn't need to humiliate her. Life already had. All I had to do was decide what kind of person I was going to be with the power I had earned. And I had already made that choice years ago, with my very first step on a healing leg and a silent room full of empty chairs. I gave Emily the job, not out of pity, but because I believed in growth, not just hers, but mine. She started at the bottom, just like I had, taking intake calls, shadowing therapists, learning with humility. And to her credit, she didn't flinch. Not when she had to clean equipment. Not when patients ignored her. Not even when our staff celebrated my birthday with a cake and she stood quietly in the corner, realizing what being forgotten feels like. One afternoon, as we packed up after a mobile clinic run in a small town, she sat beside me in the van, silent for a long time before whispering, "I should have been there when you fell. I'm sorry." I didn't respond, not with words. I handed her a photo. It was the X-ray of my shattered femur, with a note taped to it that read, "Sometimes the worst breaks lead to the strongest foundations." She stared at it for a long time, then nodded. Months passed. We weren't friends. We weren't close. But we were no longer enemies. We became something rarer, people who had seen each other at our worst and still showed up every morning to try again. The final twist? Our company received a government grant, enough to expand nationwide. I was asked to lead a televised panel. When the news anchor introduced me live as the founder who turned being left behind into a legacy, the camera panned, and caught my parents watching from the crowd. They stood clapping awkwardly, their pride visible, but hollow. Because they knew. I hadn't just walked again. I had walked past them, and I never looked back.